Thank you, G-Defy, for being a sponsor of Newsmax Podcast. G-Defy shoes are the best choice for walking, running, and standing. If you spend a lot of time on your feet, these are the shoes for you. G-Defy's patented Verso Shock technology aligns your posture and perfects your gait. Go to gdefy.com and use the code MAX for $30 off on orders of $130 or more.
All right, welcome to Newsmax Daily for Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024. It's the 27th Wednesday of the year, the first of 5 Wednesdays this month, and the start of the busy July 4th weekend travel rush. If your plans included the Caribbean, Mexico, possibly even Texas, Galveston, Padre Island, your plans are likely changing with Category 5 Hurricane Beryl now barreling towards Jamaica, and the models are still pretty sketchy after that, a little unclear. Before I get into all that's happening with President Biden, the Democrats, the Supreme Court, the New York Attorney General, Trump, independent presidential candidate RFK Jr. is making some headlines today. Donald Trump, you may recall, always said even bad publicity is better than no publicity, right? You've heard that. I'm not sure that is the case for RFK today. And if you're listening with kids in the car, you may not want them to hear this, so I'll pause for a moment. And I'm sure more people will be talking about this as the day goes on. A photo of RFK Jr. has surfaced of him holding what appears to be a grilled, yes, like as in barbecue, dog carcass, acting like he's going to take a bite of it. And the woman that is in the photo with him appears to actually be eating it. The story and photo in the New York Post and elsewhere says a veterinarian has confirmed that it is a canine carcass based on its rib structure. RFK Jr. denies that. However, and this is not recently, he texted the photo to a friend who was going to Korea, suggesting to his friend that he go to a particular restaurant there that served dog meat. I hope you're not eating lunch or dinner. With all due respect, we know that Kennedy had no chance of winning anyway, but he did have a chance of upsetting the apple cart, right? Now he's just pretty much created a firestorm of his own. The big firestorm, of course, was ignited by President Biden, and the elephant in the Democrats' room has finally come out. Texas Representative Lloyd Doggett became the first sitting member of the Democratic Party to publicly call for President Biden to step down, citing Biden's performance in last week's debate.
I think the setback that has occurred will be difficult to overcome under any circumstance.
In a written statement yesterday, Congressman Doggett said that Biden should, quote, make the painful and difficult decision to withdraw. Former Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio is calling for Vice President Kamala Harris to replace Joe Biden on the ticket, writing in a social media post, "We have to rip the Band-Aid off. Too much is at stake for Biden to continue." Ryan, who had his own short-lived presidential bid, you may remember back in 2020, he's from Ohio. He became the first presidential candidate then to endorse Biden. Our Greta Van Susteren spoke with the former congressman last night.
Were you surprised or disturbed by what you saw at the debate?
Oh, it was heartbreaking for those of us who know the president, love the president, saw him debate Paul Ryan, saw him in 2020, to see him up there. It was heartbreaking. And, at the same time, many of us in America, almost all of us have gone through some version of this with parents and grandparents. And so we know what it looks like. And that's why, looking at the immunity decision yesterday, looking at the Chevron decision last week, there's so many issues pressing. We have got, as a party, to be prepared to take on Donald Trump in the most vigorous way possible.
And I understand the election, but I think the harder question, I don't know if anyone's talking about is this. if the conduct or the cognitive abilities that we saw Thursday night, and the president has lots of opportunity to take tests, lots of opportunity to do question and answer with reporters to show that the nation, that the perception is wrong, but we haven't seen that. But if it's wrong, I said, should he step down now instead of waiting 7 months? Because what we saw is not the kind of situation that gets better over time. If it's what we assume, and we've got military overseas right now. We have American bases that have just raised their alert in Europe. Is he the right man at the moment, or is it safe to wait until January if you think he's not the right guy?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, and I think from the performance the other day, I think it's reasonable to say that maybe he should step down from office and let Kamala Harris go from here and help govern the country and then go on to the election. I've been using the example of President Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, he's in a room for 13 days with the military brass who are bullying him, pushing him around, trying to get him to start World War III. He had the cognitive ability, the intestinal fortitude, the ability to read the room, to listen, to make decisions to prevent us from going to World War III. This happens a lot for a president. And what we saw last Thursday was someone who couldn't do that. And I think that's why you're starting to see the polling numbers shift and the country move out from under his feet.
That's former Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio calling for the VP to replace the president for the remainder of his term.
The other question, it's so difficult because nobody wants to be mean or nasty, but, it is whether or not tonight we have a problem, or whether it's a November problem for the Democrats and a January for inauguration. I mean, I think the president owes the nation a little bit more to tell us, to sort of put us at rest if this is just a bad night, as he said, or whether, and we're now hearing that his staff has been saying things for the last year, and the president's been inaccessible to the press. I mean, he's not a guy who's given a lot of press conferences.
Well, the silence makes things thousands of times worse, because we saw what we saw on Thursday. In any other situation, people say Obama had a bad debate and Reagan, they would have been out there the next day going back and forth with the media, trying to just show people that they're in good shape. And I think the fact that it's been crickets this week, pretty much, the big decision yesterday with immunity, you get a 5-minute muted, press conference from a teleprompter. I mean, that's unacceptable, Greta. That's unacceptable for what the country is going through right now and the challenges that we have.
Former Democratic Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan, thank you very much for joining me, sir. I hope you come back.
Thank you. Sure will.
His brutal honesty there may be because he's a former Democratic congressman, but Ryan has been pretty outspoken and critical of Biden's cognitive abilities for the past several months at least, but the debate really sealed it for him. This is Georgia Republican Representative Rich McCormick on Newsmax with Bianca De La Garza.
If Democrats are pressuring now and even looking for options of a different ticket with Kamala and someone else, Moore, Bashir, it does seem like there is panic on their side. I mean, it is up to Joe Biden, but do you think the calls will just become so loud if he's not going to be answering, if there is a way that someone at some point says there's no path for you here, there's no confidence? It sounds like from reports we're getting that Capitol Hill is basically about to, explode. That, Hakeem Jeffries, we might be hearing from folks from, the top there, Democratic leadership, Congressman. Are you hearing any talk like that?
I don't know that it's going to come from leadership, but you're seeing this groundswell of people in the Democratic Party who are literally panicking and know that they cannot win with Biden at the top of the ticket. He's their worst chance. When you're starting to consider Kamala Harris as your alternative, you're in trouble. That's for sure. Remember, she only got about 6% in the primary, and they're talking about her as a viable alternative to Biden. That tells you what desperation they're in right now.
Congressman Rich McCormick not only speaking as a Republican, but he is also a medical doctor.
I don't think it's as easy and straightforward. Plus, if he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to. It's kind of like being king. You can tell the king he's crazy, but be careful of that. You can tell the king he has no clothes on, but be careful with that. He doesn't have to stand up. There's no law that says he has to, unless, of course, you invoke the 25th or some other way. You'd have to basically force him out if he doesn't want to do that. And convincing a guy who's senile, and he is senile, let's face it, a guy who has to be guided around by the arm to figure out how to get off stage, a guy who can't put 3 sentences together during a debate, who can't keep his train of thought. he's the kind of guy you'd put in memory care. If I was a doctor, I'd be like, look, either somebody has to be around him 24 hours a day, or he has to be in memory care because he would be dangerous to himself.
Georgia Representative and military vet Dr. Rich McCormick on Newsmax. According to a report on Newsmax.com today, there is a group of 25 Democrats working together to try and go convince Joe that he must go. More from Mike Carter.
Well, the fallout from last Thursday's disastrous debate for President Biden continues. Now, new polling suggests that more than half of all voters think Biden should be replaced. A clear majority of voters, 54%, say President Biden should be replaced as the Democratic nominee. This is according to a new Suffolk University USA Today poll of registered voters nationwide. That same poll finds more than 4 in 10 Democrats now, 41%, say the Democratic Party should replace Biden as its presidential nominee. But who would that person be? Well, according to The Hill, top names for Biden's potential replacement, including Vice President Kamala Harris, of course, though she polls worse versus Donald Trump than even Joe Biden does. California Governor Gavin Newsom, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear. So, what is the likelihood that one of these candidates could take Biden's place? And at this point, is it even possible to replace him?
A lot of calls to replace Joe Biden on the Democrat ticket. Do Democrats have another option?
I don't think so.
What about Gavin Newsom, governor of California?
Absolutely not. The guy is a nut job.
Look at California. Do you want the rest of the country to look like California?
I mean, Gavin Newsom is, I will say, personable.
You know, the slick back hair. He's a good speaker, though.
I think my home state of Nevada is doubling in population every 3 to 4 years because of people like Newsom. They're all fleeing California, and I'm a real estate agent, and I asked them, so what's the rush? They said, we got to get out of there.
The Democrats should pick Michelle Obama because what they're really looking for is the black vote. That's who keeps the Democrats in power, but Trump really has the black vote.
President Biden will not step down.
Why's that?
The reason why he's sent down is because he's fully capable of being the president because he's already performed.
Did you watch that debate last week?
He did great.
He did great? Gretchen Whitmer, she's the governor of Michigan. Her name's being tossed out there.
I don't know her too much.
That's the problem, isn't it? I mean, people just don't know who a lot of these folks are.
You know, the Democrats they're reeling right now, and they don't know what to do. Now, would they bring Hillary? I don't know.
He's not going to step down because he's presidential and he's a representation of the United States of America.
You don't have any issue with his cognitive function right now?
His cognitive function is fine.
Really?
100%.
You don't see any kind of decline from 4 years ago?
No.
Just perfectly the same?
Perfectly better.
Okay, so not everyone thinks that President Biden should step down, but if he does refuse to step aside, there is another option for the Democrats to replace him. DNC rules encourage but don't require delegates to vote for their candidate that they pledge to support. DNC rules say, quote, all delegates to the National Convention pledged to a presidential candidate shall in all good conscience reflect the sentiments of those who elected them. Democratic National Convention begins on August 19th.
Newsmax reporter Mike Carter. 3 of those people would likely get 20, maybe 15% of the Democrat vote if they were lucky. There is one very likely replacement that Mike didn't mention. At least I think it's very likely. If you've been listening to the podcast for some time, you know that I predicted that Joe would not be able to go the distance well over a year ago. And I said he would eventually hold a news conference, come out reading a prompter, of course, and say, Jill and I, the family, we've decided, blah, blah, blah. And I said that Michelle Obama would eventually be the Democrats' nominee. I've said it at least a dozen times since then, including back on Friday's Daily right after the debate. People didn't like it a year ago. People don't like it now. But now a lot of news outlets are talking about that, including a trending story today from Newsweek saying Michelle Obama continues to emerge as a replacement for Joe Biden, even though she keeps saying she doesn't ever want to run for president. The Daily Mail conducted a survey of Mrs. Obama against Mr. Trump, which showed the former First Lady getting 44% of the vote and Trump getting 47%. That same poll showed Joe Biden getting 43% of the vote, but a larger sampling of voters in a Reuters Ipsos poll showed Obama getting 50% and Trump only getting around 40%. 60% of those people did agree that President Biden should drop out of the race. And there has been as much talk this week about the First Lady as there has been about the president, right? Especially with her gracing the cover of Vogue magazine. Matt Schlapp is the chairman of CPAC and a Newsmax contributor. He weighed in on Wake Up America.
Matt, about 15, 20 seconds. Just your thoughts. I mean, the power must be the number one thing that's making her have Joe Biden stay, or having Joe stay in, correct?
Well, when I looked at that Vogue cover, I realized the devil really does wear Prada. This woman, I don't know her, never met her, but this fraud they've perpetrated is really disgusting. And why did they perpetrate the fraud? Because, they all got rich out of it. I mean, one of the Biden relatives got $50,000. She's a high school guidance counselor. I mean, they just shoveled money left and right. We know it came from China. We know it came from Ukraine. And the American people are wise to this. And shame on CNN. They didn't ask any of those questions. None of those questions. Joe Biden flooded the debate where he didn't get asked one tough question. And now the campaign is blaming CNN for Joe Biden's poor performance. It must be so nice to be a Democrat. It's just so easy.
You just blame everyone else. Everyone else gets blamed.
Such a good point. And this narrative is not going anywhere right now. They're just fortunate that we are in sort of this in-between 4th of July week when a lot of people are at home and not working. I think this conversation is going to heat back up, though.
Rob Finnerty and Allison Maloney on Wake Up America, beginning 6:30 a.m. Eastern on Newsmax. Don't forget about Wake Up America Weekend Edition as well, Saturdays and Sundays. President Biden today is speaking at a Medal of Honor ceremony at the White House, and then he'll be meeting with Democratic governors in an attempt to shore up their support after the debate debacle. It will be even more difficult if he has more gaffes at the Medal of Honor ceremony today. And you've seen where Hunter Biden has been hanging around the White House again, right? What is that all about? Not sure if the First Lady and or Hunter will be in the president's meetings with governors today. The other big story following the Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity the other day was the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, delaying Donald Trump's sentencing in the New York hush money case. Trump was scheduled to be sentenced on July 11th, as I mentioned just the other day. Judge Juan Merchan said the former president will now be sentenced on September 18th. If such is still necessary. That's a quote. Again, based on that Supreme Court decision. After they figure it all out, I should say. All right, be sure to keep up with all of the news all day on Newsmax and make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus. If you're not, go to newsmaxplus.com, get signed up in a matter of seconds. You can also get a free trial. It includes all of your favorite shows and hosts like Greg Kelly Reports, Wake Up America, Frontline with Carl Higbee, Rob Schmidt tonight. Don't forget Rob broadcasting all week long from Tel Aviv. And you get fantastic analysis from people like Matt Schlapp, Governor Mike Huckabee, Judge Napolitano, Professor Alan Dershowitz, and more. Again, that's NewsmaxPlus.com. I'm Tony Marino. This is the Newsmax Daily Podcast. Thank you for listening. If you're not here tomorrow, enjoy your 4th of July holiday, your weekend, make it safe, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.